So as you guys can see, I'm going to assume that everybody can read, and my sarcasm is my love language. So hopefully all of you will join me on that. And I just want to look at this slide real quick, my intro slide, and you can see the very first picture right there on the left is my baby picture, my very first, as we call it, the affectionately death photo. Should anything happen in my career, that's what the news would get. The middle photo is the beginning of traumas just starting to build up. In this particular photo, I was working peer support for a funeral of one of our fallen troopers. And we had just had the flyover of the helicopter, and why that was is impacted me was the loss of a good friend, Bruce Harrell, just a year prior to that. The last photo on the right, my last official photo, which I look happy. That was right as I promoted to captain, and really right before all the wheels fell off. So take your pick. All these faces are people that were very close to me, were in the academy with me, or I worked their funerals for peer support, or they were close and had committed suicide. So these are just some, but you can see right there in the middle, there's the big one, and you're probably wondering, why is that there? So this is Trooper Tyler Edenhofer, and Tyler Edenhofer was shot and killed on July 25th, 2018. And for me, that was the night that ended my career. And I just wasn't aware that that's what was happening that particular night. I was the night watch commander for the Metro Patrol Bureau for the Arizona Highway Patrol, Department of Public Safety. And that encompassed Maricopa County. So every highway in Maricopa County, I was technically over, just from 8 o'clock at night until 5 o'clock in the morning. And of course, nothing bad happens during those times. So if you're not familiar with Maricopa County, it's a very large county, and it can take me 2 hours to get from one side of the county to the other. This particular night, Tyler and his FTO had responded to a gentleman that was throwing rocks on I-10 in the West Valley of Phoenix. And I didn't know that this call was going on. As I work, I have 4 different districts that I'm scanning, and whatever district comes up first is what I'm going to hear. So what ended up happening is I got to my office, which is about a 30-minute drive from where this incident occurred. As soon as I got in, dispatch got me on my radio, which is very odd because typically they get you by a cell phone. So I answered the call on the radio, and I was asked to respond to I-10 and Avondale because a trooper had been hit. Now, if you think about that, trooper that have been hit, what comes to mind? Is it somebody who was hit by a car? Because that's what I was thinking, somebody that had been hit by a car. So as I am grabbing my stuff and getting out and heading that way, I'm not going to tell you all how fast I was driving to get there, but I made it there pretty darn quickly. En route, I got a call from a very close friend of mine, and she had asked where I was, not so eloquently, of course, and I told her my location, and she had said, "Your trooper's been shot, and it doesn't look good." And I was completely taken aback by that, because in my mind, I had prepared myself that I had a trooper who'd been hit by a car, not hit with a round. And as I am responding to this scene and I'm making notifications, I'm hearing this call, some things started to fall apart. And the first one is that particular night, we didn't have a single sergeant on throughout this entire state because we had a sergeant in service training, and that was going on for 3 days. And so who really works graveyards? Your rookie officers, right? So that particular night, I had an acting, we had multiple actings on, And as I am en route to this call, I am asking things like set up an inner perimeter, set up an outer perimeter. Let's get a scribe going. Incident command needs to be set up and all this stuff. Basically, I'm barking orders on the radio. And when I got there, what do you think was done? Nothing, nothing at all. And that's really because it was chaos. It was spinning. Everybody was kind of not, it was like people were just that 1,000-yard stare, and kind of just walking in circles and knowing something isn't right and it doesn't look good. When I'm monitoring the radio while I was driving out, I'm hearing that there's compressions were started, and I didn't know who the compressions were for. Was it for the bad guy? Was it for the suspect? Was it, that's what I was assuming. So I really wasn't set up mentally to believe that, number one, I had a trooper that was shot, and number two, I was going to lose a trooper that night. And so getting on scene, getting the scene taken care of, getting the incident command, I looked up and I saw another trooper that was on field training, and she was with her field training instructor. And they, at that moment, were having to be with the suspect, and I call it babysitting the suspect. And their faces, especially hers, who was in the academy class with Tyler, was something that burned in my brain for quite a while. The pain, the confusion, the anger, all at once. And if you've worked in this career at all, you've seen that look. And so, as we get things going, detectives show up, got to do a briefing. I get a phone call, and that phone call was from a trooper that had been on scene at the hospital, and they had pronounced Tyler. And so that was really, really hard for me to take because I wasn't expecting it. And as the night watch commander or any type of leadership, I think one of your biggest fears is losing somebody that is under your command. You feel responsible for them, making sure that they go home safe, go home to their families. This night was Tyler's very last night of field training. Did not expect anything other than for him to complete it successfully and then end up going to his duty station out in Portside, Arizona. The day prior to all of this happening, I had spoken with Tyler's captain he would be reporting to. And he was a good friend of mine. We went to the academy together, and I just said, he's squared away. I vouched for Tyler. I signed off on his training reports, and he was good to go. And then I asked this captain, hey, can I keep him? Because he's a good troop. He's going to do well. He's going to be successful. And then I made a flippant comment. And that comment haunted me. And I said, with everything that he's done here in Metro, he's going to be ready for Quartzsite, where you guys have all your shootings. And during this time, we tended to have quite a few shootings in the Quartzsite area, which is west of the state along I-10 prior to California. Little did I know that those words would come back and haunt me. As we work that scene, I get relieved of being incident commander because I'm too close to the situation now. My people are involved, and that makes sense, right? So I'm sent to the hospital, and I'm sent to the hospital with Tyler's field training instructor. I guess really I took him there. It wasn't until there that I found out actually that 2 troopers had been shot. And that was a complete shock for me. One did not, the other trooper I did know, and he wasn't assigned to my district, but it didn't make a difference, right? Because it's one big incident. So obviously the investigation happens. There's crisis management briefings. All of these things happen, CISDs, excuse me. As the supervisor, I was not allowed to attend CISDs, which I'm familiar with. I should just want to give you guys a little caveat about who I was. I was subject matter expert for Arizona Post for law enforcement stress. I taught the law enforcement stress class at the Academy, Phoenix Regional Academy, the Arizona State Trooper Academy, and then the West Valley Academy as well. So I had a lot of that knowledge. I was part of peer support since 2002. I led the Arizona State Peer Support Association, which was the multi-agency peer support group, and worked so much peer support, as you saw from those pictures. So I have all that knowledge. And I realized that, yeah, I know I can't go to that debrief, but I was also not able to go to a crisis management briefing, which really kind of confused me, but that's part of my trauma, right? So I got angry. I got angry for my district because they did not get to really actively participate in the funeral for Tyler. And the reason being that was said to us was, well, Tyler was assigned to District 4, but District 4 had only met him. They had never worked with him. Tyler had done the primary bulk of his field training in my district. So we were all very close, especially at night. You all work together, districts overlap each other. And so there was a lot of hurt and a lot of anger for my troopers, and I also carried that as well. So Tyler for me was the straw. When you put all the traumas that I've had, you have all the line of duty deaths, the suicides, the horrific fatalities, all of those calls that all add up. Tyler was definitely the last. And so it all comes crashing down. Again, I thought I was taking care of myself, but really who I was taking care of were my people. I was making sure that they were getting taken care of, doing what they needed to do, covering calls for them, whatever it took to make sure that my district was being taken care of. I started having panic attacks. And so, of course, like any good cop, I'm going to hide that, right? I'm not going to talk about the fact that I have a panic attack until I had a severe panic attack from a mid-Atlantic flight, 3 hours into a 10-hour flight from Munich, Germany into Charlotte, North Carolina. In that particular flight, I had grabbed my husband's hand as the panic attack hit and asked him to shield the kids from watching me die, because I was pretty sure that's what was going to happen. My heart rate, because my Apple Watch was telling me your heart rate's at 130 and you're not moving. So for 3.5 hours, my heart rate was over 130. And of course I threw my Apple Watch off and was like, fuck you, Apple Watch. I'll try not to cuss, but sometimes it comes out. So please, I apologize ahead of time. But that was the day that I realized that I have to get help. And so I did. I sought help. I saw a nurse practitioner in psychiatry who had been dealing with a lot of first responders. And he immediately said, you had PTSD. And I said, well, I'm not depressed. I was in total denial. And I said, I don't have depression. I have joy. And he says, listen, you can't have PTSD without having depression, and this is how it manifested with you. And I was in denial, right? Like that can't happen. So that was November of 19, and I finally had to really lean in. I was a hot mess. I was hiding it. I was really good at work, but I was not good at home. At the time, my kids were teenagers. Currently, they're 17 and 20, but they were young teenagers, preteen and teenage years, and they got angry. They got the anger mom. They were getting Captain Johnson constantly. They were not getting a mom who was loving, that understanding. And I have my husband also in law enforcement who knows the job, and he was getting the raw on the stick of, well, he was getting a wife that was detached, that didn't want to be at home, that just wanted nothing to do with the family. And so I ended up leaning in, doing ketamine before ketamine was really accepted. And I was put on some medications, and I really struggled with these meds. Really, it hurt because I felt like I was completely broken. I felt like I was such a hypocrite because I had helped so many people as they were on this path to, in their trauma, and how help them work through that. And yet here I was, a fraud, a failure, somebody who couldn't do it. Um, I was a mess. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating. And I was, most of all, like the most failed human being there was. So I was never suicidal. That wasn't something I wanted to do, but I was very reckless. I was driving fast, really fast where I probably shouldn't have been. I drove if I wasn't in my patrol vehicle, I was in my SUV, which is a large SUV. And I know that if I blow a tire and hit my brakes really hard, what's going to happen? I'm going to roll, and hopefully not make that collision, right? Just, I'd be good and my family would be good if I was done. If they didn't have to put up with my anger, walking on eggshells, all of that. If they didn't have to deal with that anymore, they would be much better off. So that's the life I was living. I was hoping for a wrong way driver to come at me, and I was going to accelerate into that wrong way. So all of those things. And now you're probably like, well, I thought you weren't suicidal. Well, I really wasn't. I wasn't going to do it myself, but if the opportunity was there, I was going to accept it. So as I was going through my process, I finally had to admit to my agency that I did have this diagnosis, and I had to file a workers' comp claim. Now, if you've ever done anything with workers' comp, it was difficult. And the time that I was filing and going through it, the Arizona State Supreme Court had just approved an appeal from a deputy up north in northern Arizona, John France. And because of him, really many officers afterwards have had their work comp claim accepted. So it took a little bit, but it got accepted. This was during COVID now. And of course, how do you see these doctors, these IMEs? It's all on virtual, right? So I did that, and I got, everything was accepted. I had this diagnosis, and now what, right? Now who am I? What am I going to do? And it was during that time that I had been told by a few doctors, you're done. You're done. You're not going to get better. You've had too much trauma, too much in your career. You're not going to be able to walk away from this one. So if you want to feel better, you got to retire. And so I started seeing an actual psychiatrist, and he had gotten me on some medications. And I was like, okay, well, first of all, I was against meds, but turns out I actually needed them to start the process of healing. So I was able to receive from the 100 Club. They helped me attend a clinic called the Amen Clinic, Dr. Daniel Amen, where they do brain spec scans. And so I got that done. And that was where, for the first time in my life, I felt vindicated and that I wasn't crazy, because the brain scan showed classic PTSD damage. And so when people get hurt physically at work, you can see that, right? And people never say, coworkers never talk trash about them. But if anybody has some kind of mental health trauma or injury, that's when the gossip happens, right? But for the first time, I could see exactly where the injury was. So I felt good about that. And then it was, now what? Now what do I do with this? And so I made the decision to retire. I hit 21.5. So that 0.5 matters, because it's like another $100 in my check of the month club. So that's exciting, right? And I didn't do a medical because I felt like, you know what, I made it over 20. So I did a regular retirement. I just felt like I didn't deserve that medical. Part of me is like, man, I should have, because I could have had, the tax benefits with that, but still I felt like no, other people need it over me. I'm good. I got my pension. So I retired December 31st, 2021. And I'm now 50, and I have never been able to grow this beard, like most cops that retire, they grow beards and, it gets really long, and I couldn't do that, but I needed to have some kind of physical change. So I dyed my hair electric blue. And then I went and got some permanent makeup put on. So I had my eyebrows done, I had my lips done, some eyeliner done. And then I got a note that I had to go do an IME for a year later. So if I could just set it up like I looked like Ronald McDonald, but with blue hair instead of red hair, I would just looked like a clown, to be honest. And so I had to go to this IME, and now it's in person. And of course, the psychiatrist doctor's like, I see your hair's different. And I said, well, I retired, and it was same thing, can't have that physical change. And he kind of chuckled, and it was fine. We had a very pleasant IME, and if they can be pleasant, right? So the report comes, and this is now January. So the appointment was January 8th of 2022. And the report states that I have blue hair, and I'm wearing lipstick, which I wasn't. It was just lip gloss, or I don't know, chapstick really. But that I looked interesting. And that I was a very pleasant person to speak with. So that was interesting. That was nice. It was a good overall report. But the very last sentence on that report was, Captain Johnson can no longer be a police officer in the state of Arizona due to her PTSD diagnosis and symptoms. Man, that hit hard. That hit hard, because number one, I was thankful that I had just retired, but number two, now here's the fourth person telling me I can't do the job anymore. And I preached about, don't let your identity be you're a trooper. Don't put it in that badge. And guess what I did, you guys? It was there, more than I realized. And I had been introduced to a program called Warrior Path, and it stands for Progressive Alternative Treatments for Healing Heroes. A friend of mine had attended a 7-day intensive, and I believe ultimately that my psychologist had also recommended it. And this program was through the Boulder Crest Foundation. And I got accepted. I filled out the application. I wasn't a veteran, but at that time they were having, first responders come in, and took my intake interview, and April of 2022 was my time to go. And the night before, I wasn't gonna go. I was gonna back out. My panic attacks were increasing that whole week up to that. I looked at my husband and I said, I'm not going. I'm just going to call and cancel. And my husband looked at me and he said, babe, if you don't go, I'm not sure we're going to survive. Now he'll tell you he doesn't remember that. I think it was too traumatic for him. He blocks it out, right? So I went. I pulled over 3 different times thinking I was going to turn around and go home. But I made it to the ranch in Sonoyta, Arizona, and spent 7 days with 7 other incredible women as they were on their journey as well with trauma. And so as we do that and spend 7 days there, we had the most incredible journey of learning about post-traumatic growth, something I had never heard of. Everybody knows PTSD, but do you know PTG? And I was like, what the hell's that? And I went in with a really bad attitude too, because again, peer support, like, what are you going to teach me that I don't already know? Turns out a lot. There's a ton of things that I didn't know about. And so I learned about what post-traumatic growth was. And I learned that I didn't have to live this life of diagnosis, dysfunction, diminishment. Or disorder. I didn't have to live there. That there was a journey I could take. The phases of post-traumatic growth. I think you guys got something on post-traumatic growth yesterday, I believe. But man, I didn't know that I could feel good again. And so I left there. I should back up a second, but right before I left on that very last day, I was approached by the director of Boulder Crest of Arizona and asked if I would consider guiding a new program called Struggle Well, and it was geared right for first responders. And I said, oh, is it anything like this? And he says, it is, it's just classroom based. I said, perfect, sign me up. And he said, you know, your name comes up a lot in the peer support world as we have traveled around Arizona, and we think that you would be a great representative. And so I jumped on the chance to become a Struggle Well guide. And not only did Warrior Path really save my life, it's what really catapulted me into where I am today. So when I say that post-traumatic growth is life-changing, I truly mean that. It is life-changing. It saved my life. I drove home, and my husband and I spent 3.5 hours on the porch, and I was trying to explain everything that I did for the past 7 days, which makes no sense to him, right? He has no idea what post-traumatic growth is. He has no idea what I'm talking about, the phases of post-traumatic growth or the domains of post-traumatic growth or walking a labyrinth or equine therapy. He has no idea what any of this means, but he can tell I'm excited. And he says, I'm really excited for you, and I hope it works. And the reason he said that was I'd been excited about things before, but I didn't stay the course. He said, I'll believe it when I see it. And of course, why wouldn't he, right? He has been hurt by me at this point for a couple of years, and our marriage wasn't over, but it was definitely it was not in a great place. It was the lowest it had ever been in our entire relationship. And so I figured out that I've got to take care of myself. I've got to do these wellness practices that I was taught. One of them was meditation, transcendental meditation. And if you've ever heard of transcendental meditation, you might think like, ooh, what kind of, thing is this? If you've not and you Google it, you're going to be like, I thought this was some kind of cult I was getting into, and I was really nervous about it. But it turns out that that's what I needed. It really did help reset my nervous system. And so when I went to Warrior Path, I had some great connections. So you can see that in the bottom, those are some of my my buddies from my class I'm very close with. The gentleman with the man bun, I don't know if you can see him, that's Joe Wood, and he's the one who got me started on the Struggle Well. And then the other picture, just some of our guides that were with me. But post-traumatic growth really is about connection. It's about honesty. It's about vulnerability, that pain, confronting that pain, but also when you're confronting that, you're disclosing. And disclosing is something that we don't like to do in this world. And I was just listening to Brock a little bit, and he'd said that suck it up, right? That suck it up buttercup mentality. Don't talk about it. That's what I grew up with in law enforcement. And so I didn't talk about it so many years. And so here was the first time I was being told, hey, it's time to talk about it. Now, it wasn't just to verbal vomit. It was to pull that rock out of my rucksack and really take a look at that rock and what that rock represented, and to really find that wisdom, to find the purpose in my pain, and disclose that. So that was pretty interesting. It was a one-on-one thing, and I learned a whole lot about myself. I didn't have to accept this new normal. I had these guides there showing me that they were living a life of post-traumatic growth, that they were living and thriving. And that's really what Boulder Crest is set out to do, is to show veterans and first responders that there is the ability to live and thrive even in the aftermath of trauma, and that good things will happen again, even after the really bad things, and it's okay for those good things to happen. And when you're carrying that guilt and shame, or that grief and loss for a really long period of time, it's hard for you to let go of that. It's hard for you to give that out, or let anybody else share that with you. And so we do these exercises in the classroom, and I did an exercise called My Old Story, and it's a genogram, and I saw where there's addictions, and I saw where there was abuse, and I saw all these different things that made sense as to what I had received from, that was passed down from my grandparents to my parents to me. And then it was, what did I pass down to my kids already? And that broke me, because right then and there, I felt like I have ruined my children. So I had the opportunity right there to draw a green line and said, what's going to stop with me? And I realized that I had some work to do. I had some repairing to do, with my family. But for the first time in my life, I cried. When I was sharing my genogram with the group, I cried. And I'm not talking just subs. I mean, just little tears. There were alligator tears. There were big old snot bubbles. I mean, it was ugly crying. And I had started to release years and years of trauma, and trauma that I brought with me prior to being in law enforcement. And so I had a friend who, she became a close friend in that group, and she was a lieutenant colonel in the Army, and both of us were like the leadership in that. We were what you would consider executive staff. So the two of us were that, and she literally stood shoulder to shoulder with me as I let it go. And that was very hard, to be vulnerable, but very hard to cry, and be okay with that. So I learned really that my nervous system was a dumpster fire, and it took a while to get that to simmer down, to feel much better. I learned a practice we call 4-7-8, 4-7-8 breathing. And they're like, oh, it's going to relax you. Well, it didn't do crap for me, but it did 6 months later. And I did it every day for 6 months, and it finally worked. So I do that daily. I do it at night when I'm going to sleep. I usually get about 4, and then I'm out cold. So I did learn how to regulate my nervous system. I still know, the value of disclosure. I know I need to have 3 to 5 really close friends, that aren't toxic, that aren't jaded, that aren't cynical, because we don't have that in law enforcement, right? That doesn't exist. So I had to get that good 3 to 5 for me. And I had a struggle, right? My struggle of Tyler, but that's not my story. My story going forward could be positive, and it's service. It's being able to bring service back to other people that are walking this trauma road, and maybe they just aren't aware of what post-traumatic growth is. So I was given this opportunity to leave Tyler, at the ranch, and I don't apologize for getting emotional. It still happens, but I was given the opportunity to find a rock anywhere on that property, 130 acres, and then leave it on the ranch. And I ended up doing a labyrinth, and I came out of that labyrinth, and I found a rock, and I was talking to Tyler about this rock, and I said, Tyler, I need you to pick out this rock, because I can't carry you anymore. You will never be forgotten, but you're not my responsibility. And you're killing me. You're crushing me. I can't hold you like this, but I won't ever forget you. And so I put his name and his end of watch on that rock. And I placed it on the ranch in an area called the Heroes Garden, which was a really nice place. And there's lots of other people in that garden as well that others had placed. And so after that, we went into a meditation, and I had started my meditation. And if you've ever seen like movie credits where it's like the black screen, and then there'll be like a little light or maybe a little flame that kind of does the outline of or does the names, spells out the letters or does some kind of picture. That's what I saw. And it was Tyler. It was the outline of Tyler. He was wearing his smoky and he smiled at me, did that, and he turned around and he walked away. And for the first time in a couple years, I was able to take the biggest deep breath of my life. And that's when I became a believer in meditation. And I left him there. Tyler is not at the state memorial at the Capitol. He is not at my agency's, hall of heroes or on the wall at the memorial there, or in DC at the National Law Enforcement Memorial. Tyler's not there. For me, Tyler's down in Sonoyta, and that's where he is amongst heroes. So I left him there. And I learned that I can live and thrive again, and I didn't have to just cope and survive. And so many of us, when we are in that struggle and we get hit with that trauma and we come down, and there's a specific slide in our Struggle Well program that we talk about how we are in this pit, we're in this pit of despair and we're stuck there. And sometimes it's just really comfortable to stay there because I know how I'm going to feel in that pit. I know what's going on in that pit. So I'm comfortable there. And then there's just you start to come up a little bit, and that's what surviving and coping is. And that's 30% better. Somebody's going to use some ice and get really loud for a second. You get 30% better from your lowest point. And when you hit that, that is your maximum medical impact. And that's what I had reached. You're not going to, that's where I was told you're not getting any better. Well, when you look at this slide, which I don't have to show you, unfortunately, there's still 70% back to your baseline. So your new normal at 30% better than your worst. That's surviving and coping. Well, I didn't want that. I learned that I could actually get back to baseline, and not only back to baseline, but break through it. And so that's where my breakdown set me up for the ability to have a breakthrough. So not do I have to cope and survive, but I have learned walking this post-traumatic growth journey how to live and thrive. And I'm better than what my baseline was. And that is just, I don't even understand how that's possible. So as I became into guiding with Struggle Well, I met some amazing people, and I was brought in to be with Mesa Police Department's first class, and that was with Joe Wood, as you guys saw that picture. And I was coming into shadow, right? Like, I'm going to listen and see how things go, and that really wasn't what happened. Joe just said, "Here, I want you to teach this part," and it was a mess, you guys. It was a mess. I was jumbly. I was all over the place, and I felt horrible. And I'd been an instructor for years, right? And so I'm like, this was pathetic. And I judged myself, right? And I just had this negative spiral, which we again talked about in Struggle Well. And I just, I was judging myself, and I wanted to isolate myself. And I thought, I will never do this again. And as, Joe is a good mentor, and one of my 3 to 5 walked me through, talked me through, and he said, by the way, you're going to be leading and guiding Mesa. So there's no pressure there, right? Because that is the first program in the Valley or the Phoenix area. Tucson Police Department had now been doing Struggle Well for a couple months, and they were showing it, they were pushing it out to the rest of the state here in Arizona for other agencies to pick that up and run with it. And so Mesa did do that. They came in, they really started, and they invited programs or agencies to join in this effort, because Struggle Well was something unique. It was a different program for first responders, and it was all about post-traumatic growth. And on this journey, like I said, I have met some amazing people, which you see here. And that bottom picture is just a bunch of master guides. And so 2 years after I started my journey as a guide, I became a master guide. And now my role is to train up new guides and then go into new areas and start new programs. And it's been one that's super, super rewarding. And in fact, I'm in program this week that Scottsdale Police Department is hosting. And we're at this amazing retreat area. So there's lots of people from different groups. So I apologize for the noise behind me. But it's been so good for me to be able to walk this journey for post-traumatic growth, but also to now serve others and show them that there is life after trauma. There is the ability to thrive again. And every class, and I've guided close to 50 now, every class, this is life-changing. You've saved my life. You've saved my marriage. Things that I never thought possible. And if I could just share with you one frustration that I have is that Dr. Richard Tedeschi and Dr. Calhoun, they coined this term post-traumatic growth. And here it is 2025. I learned about it in 2022. Do you guys have any idea when it was actually coined? It's really awkward because I can't see you. So I'm just going to tell you, it was coined in 1995. That's 5 years before I became a trooper. And I get angry because I think about how many people, how many careers could have been saved because people stopped doing stupid stuff. How many marriages could have been saved because we weren't committing infidelity and risk-taking or being assholes to each other. How many lives could have been saved because people didn't commit suicide. And so in 1995, when they went to publish their the findings of books, and the publisher said, hey, that's really good info, but nobody wants to hear about PTG. They only want to hear about PTSD. And so again, 1995, 2025, 30 years later, we're talking about this. And so that's where we are now. That's where I am now. My breakdown from Tyler, from all the other trauma that I had brought in, I thought I was done. I thought I had nothing else left. I thought my life as I knew it was over. I was stuck in the diminished life, my new normal. But that was a lie. It's an insidious lie because there is the ability to walk the post-traumatic growth journey, and how honored I am to be able to do that and guide people on that journey should they choose. And I've met some incredible people, some amazing stories have I heard. One particular story, and I'm allowed to share, but I won't give the name. I had a gentleman get up day 2 of the 5-day program, and he grabbed his phone and walked out the door, and he was gone for an hour. And of course, now I'm slightly freaking out, right? Texting their peer person going, hey, this person's disappeared. Well, the gentleman comes back later and he says, hey, I wanted to apologize. My divorce was to be finalized at 5 p.m. today, and my wife sent me a text asking, are we really doing this? And I realized then and there that no, we're not. And that's when he grabbed his phone, he went out and he called his attorney, told his attorney to pull the divorce papers, called his wife. The following week was going to be their 20th wedding anniversary. He broke up with his girlfriend that night, that Tuesday night. And the following week went out to lunch with his wife, where they had a pretty good, intense conversation, bought new wedding bands, and decided to renew their wedding vows. And he is back home, and they're still a work in progress. And I didn't save his marriage. My buddy Ari didn't save his marriage. This guy saved his marriage, but he realized the problem was him, not his wife. And so he wanted to put in the work to save the marriage. And that's just one of the stories that I have. There are so many more. And it's just so humbling to watch first responders, police, and fire come to the table and lean in. And some of them are voluntold, to be in these programs, and they come in with these attitudes and they're all cross, right? But by, a couple days in, they really have found that the agencies aren't sending them for the agency's benefit. this program isn't for the agency's benefit. The program is for the individual and their lives, and not just for work, but their personal life as well. And so, man, as I've continued to make this journey, I got welcomed home, and I'm welcomed into the post-traumatic growth family. There's more ice. I apologize. My husband and my children who are below are excited to see me. They love the change in me. They can't, I'm sorry, there's people talking. They can't wait for me to come home from programs because I am just so excited. I love watching what people do over a week. They changed from Monday to Friday. I have that benefit of watching the faces turn soft and smile and start to enjoy life again. And so that has been one of the most beautiful things to see. But my family's intact, and we actually like hanging out with each other. And so I'm super, super grateful for them to not leave me or turn their back on me when I was at my worst. And in April of this year, of 2025, I had the opportunity to go to my agency and do their very first class, Struggle Well class. And it's right now it's been the only one as their budget, right? So most of the people, and it's in this picture in the top left, I knew 2 people in that class, and they were chaplains. I had a lot of anxiety about going back because when I left my agency, when I retired, I left angry. I left with 2 middle fingers in the air, and I never looked back. 3.5 years later, I had still not returned. So when these people in this class found out that I was retired captain from the agency that they worked at, they didn't want to accept that I hadn't been back. So on Friday, after class was over, they escorted me home, and they said, it's time for you to come home. And I did. I went home, and the 2 men that you see in that middle picture, one I call Grandpa, and the other one was just very prominent figure in my husband's and my career. Grandpa was my SWAT, brought me on SWAT as a negotiator, and to have these 2 men there at our museum waiting for me to come home that Friday, again, brought on the ugly crying. I was finally home, and I was comfortable being back at my agency. And then you can see that's my retirement brick and my husband's retirement brick. We were, I'd never seen it when it was installed, after it was installed. And so being welcomed home, not only for my family, not only for the into Boulder Crest, but to my own agency where I had a lot of pain and a lot of hurt that I had finally let go of, was huge for me. And that just added for my journey of post-traumatic growth. And so I want to show a video here for those of you, if you've not ever heard of Boulder Crest Foundation. We are a national nonprofit. We, like I said, our goal is to really give veterans, first responders, and their families, show them the ability that they can live and thrive again, even in the aftermath of trauma. And so we have Struggle Well programs, and we have Warrior Path programs. And Warrior Path really is for veterans, but there are some first responders that go there. And the Struggle Well programs, we do 2 days and we do 5 days. And if I could just be candid, I will tell you that the 5-day is the best. That's pretty much what we do in the Phoenix area, is a 5-day program, and that's where the magic happens. And so I just want to show you this video that we have put out called Reborn. And I do need to let you know that there is some, could be some triggering scenes, but it does get better, so.
going to be going over a list of questions together. Do you find yourself being super alert or watchful or on guard, feeling jumpy or easily startled?
No.
Having difficulty concentrating or trouble falling or staying asleep?
No.
Are you feeling distant or cut off from other people?
No.
Are you having strong negative beliefs in yourself or other people or the world around you?
Get off me.
Sophia, you don't tell me what it is!
No.
Have you been blaming yourself or someone else for the stressful experience or what happened after it?
Shit happens, okay? That's the fucking job. Are we done?
Sophia?
Can you tell me your name?
Sophia.
Can you tell me if this is your blood? You're okay. I'm just gonna give you some oxygen right here. Nice deep breath, Sophia. Look at me right here. Can you tell me what happened?
Welcome to Boulder Crest. Thank you for taking a knee and choosing to be here with us. Over the next week, we are going to be creating a safe and trusting environment, one in which you can be open and ultimately turn your struggles into strengths. Hold it. Keep holding. Fight those shakes. Show me you are warriors. That's why you're here. That's all right. It's all right. Go ahead, release down. When we're holding that tension and we're holding that stress, if we keep it in, we're gonna break. We need to be able to release the tension.
Horses have mastered living in the moment. If we can just grasp a piece of it. No lecture, no book is going to be able to give you this connection.
This bonfire symbolizes making peace with our past so that we can create our own future. These struggles, these traumas, they don't define us. Take a big inhale. Exhale.
shifts happen. Recognize those shifts occurring and embrace them.
We look to our past to understand, not to place blame.